All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of The Potential Project. I'm your host, Sean Calhoun, and if you're here, it's because you're ready to reduce stress, burn stubborn fat, and get your body working with you instead of against you. On this podcast, we're all about simple, no BS strategies for fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle. This way, you can feel strong, confident, and in control. I'll give you the tools, mindset shifts, and habits to help you look and feel your best without spending hours in the gym or stressing over every single meal. Now, let's get into it. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of The Potential Project. Now, today it is going to be a solo episode, and I was on motivation for a little while, talking about your mindset and things, but today we're going to break down a little bit more science and how it applies to the body and how it can improve your life and just things to become more aware of. Now, this whole podcast that we're doing here all stemmed from my breakfast that I was having this morning. So, a lot of times, I will admit, I eat oatmeal. I enjoy it because it's quick, it's warm, it's got that nice texture, and I love the taste, right? I put a little scoop of peanut butter in there, usually a banana, maybe a scoop of chocolate protein powder, and it is delicious. Let me tell you something, I look forward to it all the time. But the issue arose a couple hours later, not even, like maybe an hour later, when I felt like I needed to take a nap. I was reading my book. I had, some time in between clients, and I was reading my book, and my eyes were getting heavy, and I felt like, man, I could go back to sleep right now, even after having a cup of coffee and breakfast. And I know what this meant, but to you, the listener, you might not understand why this is a cue and why this could be a signal for you to adjust some things. So on paper, it was a great meal. I had organic oats. I had a banana. I had some natural peanut butter where it was just peanuts and sea salt, right? Whole foods, a balanced meal, right? But what actually happened in my body was an imbalance in my metabolism, in my blood sugar, and how my body activates and uses energy as fuel. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, because quality matters 100%. Now, the first thing you should do when it comes to your nutrition is get whole foods, right? Eat whole foods 80 to 90% of the time, and that will get you moving in the right direction. But where I'm at, and even maybe you, is at a point where you need to listen to the signals that your body is giving you, and not only listen to them, but I'm going to explain what they're trying to tell you and how you can make adjustments in what you're eating, because guess what? I'll say it a million times, and I'm going to die on this hill. You are an individual, right? So what you eat may be amazing, but you could have a husband, a wife, a twin, someone who's very close to you, and they could eat the same exact diet and get different results. And this is what I run into. I talk with a lot of women who are doing all the right things. They're counting their calories, they're working out, they're doing all the things, but they're still lethargic. They get bloated, they have brain fog, and they're not losing the weight that they want to. And again, some people, they probably do need a kick in the butt, right? Stop eating as much sugar, the late night snacking. There is some discipline that comes involved with it. But a lot of the people that I work with in my one-on-one program, these women are past the discipline. They've been crushing it for years, but guess what? The needle isn't moving. They're still feeling like crap, and they've been dismissed and told that they're just getting older, or this is just a part of it, or, you're in menopause, and whatever other excuse that people want to throw at them. But I'm here to not accept that, and I'm here to show you that your body is a science project. It's individualized, and you need to learn how to listen to that, and it all comes down to your intuition, the signals your body's trying to tell you, and being aware. So the first thing that I wanted to break down is this whole calorie myth, right? Now, we're not going to go down a deep rabbit hole because this could be its own podcast in itself. Maybe I'll do one on calories and food in the future, but just hear me out, right? A calorie is a unit of energy, kind of like the miles on your dashboard in your car, right? Because food isn't just calories. There is a lot that goes into it. And I made a social media post about this, about how food is broken up into amino acids, vitamins, minerals, and a bunch of different things that fuel your body and create your physical structure. And if you're here from that social media post, hello, welcome. If this is your first show, I hope you enjoy it, right? So two foods could have the same amount of calories but have completely different outcomes on the person who's eating it. For example, let's say you had 500 calories of, like I did, oatmeal and fruit, or you had a meal that was 500 calories of steak and eggs. Those are two breakfasts that I would truly enjoy. The way my body operates is that after oatmeal and fruit, I'm going to be probably more lethargic, brain won't be as clear, and I'm going to want to take a nap. Whereas the steak and eggs, I'm going to feel satiated, I'm going to have that calm stomach feeling and have good energy, sustained energy, not like I drank a Red Bull energy, but just like I'm alive, I feel good, I'm here, I'm with it. Now, that is the same number of calories, but what happens internally is there's a different blood sugar response. My hormones are affected differently. Your brain chemistry is receiving different signals and different fuel, and my satiety levels are different. Hear me out, right? Two meals that are completely whole foods, that are natural in a sense, have the same amount of calories, but affect my body totally differently. And this is why I get so fed up with hearing people talk about, in order to lose weight, you just need to cut calories. Yes, that's a prerequisite. That's like, for sure, the law of thermodynamics. If you want to lose weight, you need to not eat an excess of food, for sure. That's a baseline. But we also need to learn what the food is doing to our insides and how it's being responded. Just like I said, the baseline foundational thing is that you need to eat whole foods. Right? I see a lot of social media posts about the whole calories in, calories out thing, and the whole all these protein bars and all these crazy meals. It's like, guys, let's get real with ourselves and stop trying to trick our brain into some hack that we can find this cool diet, or that we need to count every single calorie that we eat. Let me tell you a secret. If you're eating all real whole foods and preparing them at home, it's really hard to overeat that, because you're going to be full. You're going to listen to the signals. Your body's going to feel better. So start with that. And I'm not here talking to people who are eating McDonald's every day, because if that's the case, you got other things to work on before we get to this level. Anyway, the calorie myth, it's debunked. It's not just calories in, calories out. Food is, making up your body, and it's sending signals and operating different the way you absorb the nutrients, the way you digest the food. Now, the second part of this is that the food that you're consuming becomes your literal biology. You've heard the phrase, you are what you eat, right? So when you eat food, it's not necessarily even what you eat, it's what you digest and absorb, because food breaks down through the digestion process into things like amino acids, fatty acids, glucose, different micronutrients, and becomes distributed throughout your body. And those pieces, when broken down, become literally the makeup of your brain chemistry. They make up your hormones. They make up your gut lining, right, which hosts a whole, array of bacteria and its own ecosystem down there, and your whole immune system. It becomes your mitochondria, which is the production of energy within your cells. So when someone says food affects their mood, their energy, and focus, that's your literal biology. It's not just like a motivational quote that they were reading, What you eat is literally your makeup. It's your whole entire biology. And there are signals that come from the food, right? So the thing that I always come back to, and I said this before, is that you're an individual. And a different body responds differently to foods. So what does that mean, right? Because when I eat something, I might respond to it one way, like the oatmeal situation. I was tired. You might eat oatmeal and say, man, I feel good. That gave me energy. My stomach's kind of calm. I have clarity. So that might be completely opposite to you. And let me explain why. Genetics actually influence how your body handles your macronutrients, which are your carbs, your fats, and your protein. It affects how your gut health is and how well we absorb nutrients. There's some folks that don't absorb fats properly or protein properly. It affects how stress levels change and how we process your fuel. It affects how your hormones are impacting your hunger, your cravings, your blood sugar stability. Things like sleep impacts your insulin sensitivity, and your activity level changes the amount of fuel that you need. So if you're someone who works out a lot, then you might need more fuel to maintain your base. Whereas if you are sitting on the couch, you don't need as much fuel to kind of get that action accomplished. Now, this whole basis is off of what's called metabolic typing. Now, if you're someone who enjoys to read, it's an older book. I think it was released maybe 80s or 80s. Like, you can tell by the look of it that it was released around the early 90s. And it's a whole science that was created and developed on the case that based on where, my voice broke there. Based on where your ancestral DNA is from, so where you were, started off in this earth, the climate, the region, what you had access to determined what your body needed for fuel. So for example, if we go to the Puritan, groups of people like the Eskimos, if you go look at Eskimos, they eat a lot of fatty fish. They're not eating a lot of like grains and carbs and bananas and things like that because in that region of the world, they didn't have access to it. So the ancient Eskimos who were just eating what they had access to, they have, well-structured faces. They have straight teeth. They don't get sick. They don't get sick often. They don't become obese, right? Because they're eating what their body is needed to sustain its energy, its fuel, and its genetic makeup. Now, if you go down towards the equator into any of those cultures, and I'm talking, back in the day or the cultures that were born there, raised there, and didn't really leave, they're eating things like citrus fruits, bananas, pineapples. They might be eating more carbs, right? But yet they have the same thing. Good facial structures, straight teeth, they don't get sick, they have clear skin, vibrant energy, right? We flip the script. You go over to let's say Ireland, where it's colder and it's raining a lot, and you get those people who are eating a lot of potatoes and a lot of red meat. Those people thrive off of that. So the same thing was occurring as the researchers went around the world to these ancient civilizations and found out if they're eating what their body needs for fuel, and the way our oxidative system balances out the energy in our body. Hey, hope you're loving the episode so far. Thanks for spending some time with me. I got a quick favor to ask. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast because that's how I know you're getting value from the show. And this way, you never miss an episode. All right, now back to the show. Then you are going to be better off. And you can use this to your advantage to eat the proper foods that are based upon you. Now, you might be saying, well, Sean, how do I figure this out? Because, I have ancestors from all over the place. Again, I would highly recommend you read the book called Metabolic Typing. It breaks down this in grave detail. But in the book, and online you can do it, they have a questionnaire. And it's cool because you get to answer questions about yourself. It'll say your physical attributes, how you look, how you feel, and it asks you these questions. And when you take the results, based on your results, it's going to tell you what type of metabolizer your body is and what fuel sources that you should focus on to balance out your energy. And when you eat food, it's going to lead to things like high energy, good mood, clear mind, less getting sick, like all of the good things that we want from food, as long as it's natural whole foods. This thing isn't going to tell you which protein bar to buy at Costco. It's going to tell you what range of macronutrient ratios that you should be eating and how to do that, which is amazing. So go read the book. You can look it up on YouTube. You can do research on metabolic typing, but that is the Spark Notes version of what it does. You do a questionnaire. It ranks you on which type of metabolic type you are, which explains how your body processes fuel and what type of macronutrient ratio is going to benefit you the most. You might be someone like me where I need to eat foods that are higher in proteins and less carbs. So I need to eat like red meat. I need to eat chicken. I need to eat chicken thighs, steaks, like things that are very high in protein. That's what's going to keep me full, satiated, with a clear mind, good energy. You might find out that, the starchy carbs and the rice and the bananas and the fruits do well for you. And then guess what's cool? You get to test this out. So it's not perfect, but you get to start eating in a way that supports you and notice the changes, right? And then you can tweak this in your own life. Now, the next thing that I've touched on, but I want to kind of isolate right now, is the 3 most important signals to pay attention to when it comes to eating food and how it should respond in your body. The first one is energy. When you eat food, you should feel steady energy. You shouldn't feel sleepy or foggy. Now, the way that you check this is you eat food, and about an hour or two afterwards, check in with yourself. Do I have good energy? Is it steady? Or do I feel like I need a nap? And if you notice that you're having a crash after a meal, it could even be something like a blood sugar issue where like you had too many carbs during your meal, which spiked your blood sugar, and then it crashes shortly afterwards. So that's something to tune into, is your energy. The second one is your mood, right? Because when we eat food, you may feel irritable, you may get anxiety, you might have low motivation, and these are all cues that you're eating the wrong macronutrient ratio or wrong types of foods for you personally. Again, you could be eating whole foods, you could be eating the same diet that worked for someone else to go ahead and lose weight or have good energy, but it might not be exactly what you need. Then we have satiety, right? This is how full you feel. And I don't mean stuffing yourself to the gills and feeling like your stomach is physically full. I mean you ate food and you're content, right? You're not bloated, you're content. You know that you fueled your body. So a good meal should carry you until the next meal. Let's say for simplicity's sake, you eat 3 whole meals a day. You eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everyone's setup is different. Just hear me out. You eat breakfast, you should be eating enough nutrients and in the appropriate ratios so that it gets you to eat lunch without wanting to snack or be craving something in between. Same thing. Then you eat a good lunch, that should get you to dinner. Then you should eat dinner, feel balanced. Boom, you wake up, do the whole thing again the next day, and that's how you live your life in a way that feels content, good energy, and amazing. So if you're having things like cravings for salt, cravings for sugar, you're snacking, or you're just like thinking about food after you're eating, that is feedback to you that there was something off with what you ate. Now, again, if it's you're craving salty things, that's usually a mineral imbalance and you need to get more minerals in your body. If you're craving sugar, that's usually a blood sugar imbalance, and maybe the amount of carbs or sugar that you're having in your meals is a little bit off. So start listening to these cues. And if you follow me and listen to this podcast and on social media or know me personally, I can help distinguish ways that you can tweak this. But hear me out. This is the baseline. We can start to make some progress on this. Now, back to my oatmeal example. I'm reiterating that I'm not saying that it was bad. And I'm not going to stop eating oatmeal altogether ever because I truly do enjoy it. It tastes really good and it doesn't always mess up my energy. It's just that that type of meal does not match my physiology, right? Like I said, I've taken the quiz, I've paid for the metabolic typing professional assessment where it told me exactly what type of, metabolic type I have. So I know the list of foods that are going to benefit me more, and oatmeal is sure not on the top. So it just doesn't match it doesn't match my body type, and that's okay. So for my body, remember, like I said, things like higher protein, slower digesting foods are better for me to keep my blood sugar stable. So I need to eat meats. I need to eat foods that are higher in protein. So, this happens all the time. Clients that I have, people that I talk to where they're doing everything right, but they're still feeling exhausted and stuck. And let me tell you, feeling tired all day or waking up after a long night or a night in bed and not feeling refreshed, it's pretty frustrating, right? Like you can't be your best at work with your relationships, even in your workouts. You can't show up being your best if you're tired all the time. And guess what? You might be eating whole foods. You might be doing the quote unquote right things. But let me tell you, when you balance this out and you start to learn what your body needs for fuel and how to kind of manage that in a way that suits you personally, the individual, magic can happen, right? A few small tweaks in, maybe the portions of protein you're having versus the portions of carbs and the styles of food that you're eating all can be the same quality, but with a few small tweaks, bingo, now we're talking, right? And why this matters for everyone who's struggling with weight and energy, specifically women, because that's who I serve most of the time in my one-on-one online community, is that many women blame themselves. You're frustrated, you can't lose the weight, you're working really hard. All of a sudden, the conversation switches, is that you must be, not working as hard. You don't have enough discipline. Your metabolism's broken. Could it be your thyroid? But a lot of times in reality, it's just that you're eating foods that are just fighting against your biology, right? You're not necessarily doing the wrong things. You're not having the wrong diet. You're not, I talk to people, they're weighing out their food, they're counting their calories, they're driving themselves nuts, to be honest. But if they would make these few small switches and start to see a change in their energy, that goes a long way towards your motivation and your ability to see through all the noise and make progress on your own. Because when you get in tune with the signals your body's giving you and the intuition you have and the ability to be present in that, man, that's power right there. So, once you match those things, your energy improves, your hunger, your cravings are going to calm down, your energy improves, and your life gets better, to be honest, right? So I always like to sprinkle in some type of action step. Now, it's not always applicable that we do an action step, but for this one, it is. And I want you to, number one, if this resonated with you, I hope you're, taking some notes or re-listen to this and kind of understand what is going on with your body and how you can take control of it. But here's your exercise that I want to pose to you as a listener to try this week, right? For the next 3 days, after every meal, I want you to ask yourself, give it an hour or two, but after you eat, ask yourself, how is your energy? Are you lethargic? Are you tired? Do you feel like you need a nap? Are your eyes getting heavy? How is your mood, right? Are you getting pissed off at everything? Or are you kind of like you're even keeled, right? You feel good. You're just going about your day. And then how long until you feel hungry again? Are you eating a meal and automatically afterwards you're like, oh, where's my next snack? I need something quick, or you're grabbing handfuls of nuts or chips or whatever it is that you like to snack on in between your meals. I don't need you to get an app out. I don't need you to get a piece of paper out. I don't need you to track anything. I just want you to become aware. So do this week. After every meal, give it an hour or so and tune into those things. How's your energy? How's your mood? How's your satiety? And if they're off, I challenge you to make some type of adjustment, right? For example, let me just give you a personal one. If I eat a meal and I feel tired, I didn't have enough protein in there. I know for me, I didn't have enough protein, too many carbs. My body burns through carbs too quickly, so I need to up the protein in the next meal. So for you, try that, right? If you're feeling tired, up the amount of protein, lower the amount of carbs, and then see how you feel off of that. Unfortunately, without doing the metabolic typing whole situation, you got to do the fine tuning yourself. It's like tuning a radio dial. It's like, all right, let's try more protein. Let's add a little more fat. Let's lower the carbs, or let's up the carbs, lower the protein. You find the ratio that starts to work with you, and then you key that in and you start to perfect it over time as you manage your meals. Just remember, your body is not broken. These symptoms that you're experiencing are communication from your body to you to do something about it. Now, food is not about perfection. It is about alignment with your greater self and with your higher energy and your better biology. So once you learn to read these signals, everything gets simpler. Guys, I hope you take action. And if you learn something from this, share it with a friend. Do something about it, right? Even if you don't share this podcast or tell anybody, if you take action and it improves you, I've done my job. So I will see you next week. Hey, thanks for spending some time with me on today's episode. I hope you got a ton of value from it. If we're not connected on Instagram yet, let's change that. Hit me up at Sean Calhoun _. That's SEAN Calhoun _. Shoot me a DM. Let me know what you think of the show, or if you got any questions about how to level up your health. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on the next episode.